First of all, I would like to thank you personally for having me here, Elena, Haralds, and Sanita, and I think rejoined us as well. Yeah, I see the little rectangle, second line. Thank you for having me, and thank you also for the discussion that we had previously. Of today. The talk I present today is divided, as I already said, in 3 parts. So actually, I will be more, let's say, focus on the methodological part, which is dedicated especially on the data and the digital methods that I use to categorize and create to categorize and create my models that I will show you today. Well, just some few words about myself. I think that I'm basically a humanist with a very crisis of identity. I would say that's because I came from a literary past, and afterwards I moved to history. But if I would define myself and my work, I would say that is the work of a cultural historian. I work especially on Jewish deportation at this moment, and I'm in the scientific board of the Jewish Contemporary Foundation of Milan, and we are developing some of the models that I will show you today for a very ambitious project that I explain afterwards. I also worked in a big project that is still going on, but like other big research, I think that is never ending. So it's a project on literary translation that we are created, and we are still planified in Oxford, which is called prismatic translation, prismatic JNR. We work on JNR translation in the world. Literally, all the translation we found, they are still in the process of digital analysis, and also I work extensively on militant culture. My book, Voices of Dissent, is an overview of Italian political music from the 60s up to today. So, as you can see, it's this is an example of what I call identity crisis for a humanist, I would say. The talk I present today, so let me share the screen. There you go. Can you see it? Yeah, I think so, yeah. So it's called Tracing Nazi-Fascist Violence to reinterpret World War History, because the title is told all around the conception that digital methods reveal themselves as one of the most effective kind of analysis we could pioneer on historical data for this period. And it's something that started from, and this is the first block of our presentation, of a project that I started working on in 2018, and now I'm writing the book of this research, a research that is called Last Letters. It was my Marie Curie project, and it was a research that tried to figure out how culturally, linguistically, and with a special humanities approach, we could analyzing the letters of the people who were sentenced dead during World War I and World War II in order to describe the post-World War Italian society, in the sense that basically tracing the difference in the language and in the cultural approach that soldiers sentenced that during those two world wars, we could be able, that's my idea, that's what I working on in the conclusion of the research, we could really describe what was the approach of anti-totalitarianism culture of Italian society at the end of fascism. So basically this cultural, linguistical, and geospatial approach trying to create a line and a sort of connection between World War I and World War II. Let's say that methodologically, this is a more a linguistical approach than not an historical approach, because the corpora I created and I gathered together, they're more or less more interesting in a linguistic point of view than not an historical point of view, at the beginning at least. So this is the time frame that I considered, and as I said, because everything started with a linguistic approach, so if I repeat myself, I consider this period based on the theories on the unification of Italian language by Tullio De Mauro, like other linguists say that Italian started to formalize itself during this period exactly for the unification of Italian that find themselves in the trenches for World War I and on the front for World War II. So this first part of the speech is dedicated to the documents and to my approach to documents. One of the problems that I found is the problem of an heterogeneous corpus and how to work with heterogeneous corpora in general. The documents you are seeing in the slide, they are the documents that I consider for my research. I cannot be more precise on what I found, where, and how, but during the first break of this talk, we can maybe discuss this part. So letters, of course, as you can see in the right-hand part of the slide, there's a bunch of letters of soldiers during World War I. There are postcards, a lot of postcards. Postcards, there are a particular case because the censorship was the censorship part of the archive in Rome, in which I found the documents, contain a lot of postcards from soldiers, telegrams, and a very particular case was the case of the sentences of trials. And I'm still working on World War I trials. I have a project that will start in September on handwriting transcription of those documents. And this is a very particular case. It's super interesting, in my opinion, because I found a lot of letters rewritten on the sentences of these trials. Like, let's imagine that a soldier wrote at home that, well, word is shit, let's say, okay, or word is awful. So the censorship blocked the letter, and during the trial, there's a lot of postal crimes inside the sentences. During the trial, someone wrote the text of the letter. One of the particular cases I found, and this was really interesting, I found a lot of documentation about soldiers' revolts inside the trenches against their own army. There is the Brigade Catanzaro, for instance, which was the subject of a very huge protestation, and the Italian army, they shoot on those soldiers, and a part of them try to write home behind the stamps. So they wrote their testimony of this repression of the Italian army behind the stamps, and these stamps are lost forever, but the words that they wrote behind the stamps, they are still present inside the sentences. So it's a sort of indirect source for this kind of episodes of World War One. World War II, as you can see, the documents of World War II will be very different. I base my definition of those letters. It would be really interesting to discuss about how we can define a last letter, which is one of the question I'm trying to answer right now. So in this part, I have letters of partisan sentenced to death, racial and political deportees, and spiritual testament. I was telling that the definition of these three kinds of texts is defined by Mimmo Franzinelli in 2006. Especially the last category, spiritual testament, is the definition of the letters that a partisan, or anyway a person wrote time before his death, just to give to let the his or her testimony and testament to the people who will survive to the war. So let's say we have some spiritual testament of very famous people, like the uncle of Italian singer-songwriter called De Gregori, for instance, or the brother of Pasolini. And in this text, you have, let's say, text like, if I will die, I hope that my ideas will survive. I hope that Italy will be free from fascism. Those kind of approach to the text. And the text in itself, they are contained in documents like this. So just to show and to give you an idea of the materials I used, this is a letter that in our vision, in the, let's say, the heritage, and in the heritage of the document, we always had the photocopy. We always work on the photocopy. When we went to check for the real document, we have seen that document is not an A4, so it's very, very, very small. And this is one of the points. It's because of that I place this letter as the first. Sometimes our perception and the tradition of those texts is not based on the original text, but on the version that someone placed in an old archive, or just in a photocopy that is findable also online. Another kind of text is this one. It's very particular, the texts that are contained on books. So those partisans normally wrote on what they have, what they had in their bag, in their pockets, or they found in the place where they were imprisoned. So we have a lot of text written on books. This is another example, which allows us to ask ourselves also, what is considerable as a last letter? Is for instance, in this case, the totally all the three texts we are seeing, the one is inside the book and the other they are on the border. Just there are two different texts. There are three texts. The date is regarding all the texts we have inside. Well, one of the fascinating things of working on this kind of text is trying to understand the genesis, the evolution of the text inside the support. Partition as well. In this case, this is a merchant, but he was also a musician, and he wrote his last letter on what he had inside his bag when he was taken. Jack, this is one of the most important figure of Italian resistance. He was a colleague who worked, who was in chief of all the northern part of resistance in Italy, and as you can see, he wrote his last letter on this kind of documents. This is another interesting case, postcards from the regime. Those are the postcards that fascism gave to the soldier to write home, and often, this is the case of a partisan that is often happen for the deportees as well. We have the last word of those anti-fascists written on these fascist postcards. Graffiti. So this is one of the graffiti that we found at the end of the war inside the prison of Via Tasso, which was the prison of the anti-fascists in Rome, and today the Museum of the Liberation. And they're pretty interesting because we have, well, I asked myself if I should consider those texts close to the letter or not. And this is, the reason is because one of the things that I cannot discuss, but one of the things that I understood analyzing digitally those texts is that one of the points that is super important to define a last letter, in my opinion and for my study, is the use of punctuation. So why? Because as you can see in the previous examples, you can check how those formats are limited in length, or in, well, they are small, they are difficult to handle, and so sometimes like commas or points are not present inside the text because the person is written using the end of the document, the end of the page, as a mark of punctuation, especially points, for instance. So graffiti have not the same problem because you have the wall, so you can really write as much as you can according to the free space inside the wall. Here we have another example of another graffiti in the Risera San Sabba, which is one of the concentration camps in northern Italy. And finally, yeah, we have this one, and this is a very particular case. We lost the original document. This is a slice, well, a piece of bread. So on this piece of bread, Ignazio Vian literally wrote the name of each of his beloved one, Papa, Nello, Totti, Teresa, and the others. So another really interesting, yeah, I always forget this. This is the last letter of Benito Mussolini, and this is a particular case. This is in the archives of the Istituto Ferruccio Parri in Milan, the central point of the network of the resistance institutes in Italy. And this is a particular case of a last letter, which is a last letter in the sense that this case is the case of a letter that was written without any feeling of death, in the sense that Mussolini did not think that 2 days before would be shot by the partisan, by a partisan trial. And it says basically that today the 52nd Garibaldi Brigades arrested me in the place of Dongo, and they treat me correctly. So basically, it says absolutely nothing about his destiny. The last example of the letters that I would like to show you is this one of this partisan Formenti from Genoa, and this is quite interesting, and it's my last example about how the tradition of this letter, how those letters arrived to us, how those letters were transmitted by by archives, which is one of the points we will approach in the third part of the block. So in this part, in this letter, and how we always read this letter, we always use this black and white version of the letter. When we went to Genoa and we checked for the real document that was totally hide, we verified that the stain on the border, they are stain of blood. So actually, what we thought was ink, it was blood. And so based on this change of perspective, we also started thinking that probably this letter has a different history comparing to what we thought, in the sense that probably it wasn't taken from the sentence to death before his death, but it was taken by the doctor, probably, or the priest, after that he was shot by the fascists. Okay, so and I go to the end of this first block. Actually, I work with the different kind of lemmatizer and the different kind of attention in terms of what I wanted to check for World War I and World War II. Here you have a very basic overview of my linguistic model, my natural language processing model. And why I show you that? Because extracting name entity, so toponyms, I thought that at the beginning of the research, I didn't think this, but I realized that it was possible at this stage. I was able to think that it was possible to create and to analyze these letters and organize those letters inside a digital edition that was quite different from the other edition we had at this moment for the for these letters. So what I'm trying to say is that I extract all the toponyms of those letters in order to create a special edition of these letters. So this is literally an edition because each point is a letter that can be read and can be checked. We have all the metadata for each of them, and it is possible to visualize and to navigate those letters based on what we are looking for. What I mean with that, I can divide the letters based on the place in which they will be they were written. So in here you have a lot of letters written in several places. And what are those places? The place of execution, basically, that I extract from the beginning of the letters. Or we can check and read the letter according to the place in which each deportees or partisan were born. So in here also we have filters. So let's say that we want to check just the letters written by people between 13 and 20 years old, for instance, or we want to go for the oldest one, older than 45 years old. And we can also check for the letters, for instance, of the, this is on the other, wait a second, here we go. We can check just the letters, for instance, of the women, which is the absolute minority, of course, considering the period and the profile of the writers. Or we can also check if we want to see in these women, for instance, the deportees or the partisans. So we can filter those letters. This is one of my favorite. Marchiani Irma was one of the vice commander of Garibaldi Brigade. So this was the first step that allowed me to pass from natural language processing research applied to the letter to the special humanity models that we will see in a while. So actually, I think that for this part, just to verify, I come back on my slides. This one, yeah. Yes, so if you want, we can have a short break if you have any question or comments, or if I'm not clear enough on one of the part I approach it. So feel free to contribute to the discussion.
Well, as a moderator, I feel obligation to say something. It's really fascinating to follow along. I would love if colleagues, historians would have more professional questions. What I wanted to ask is more from a DH perspective. At some point, you mentioned heterogeneous corpora. So what would you say are the limitations or advantages of heterogeneous corpora? And to my understanding, when you collect physical items, kind of naturally are heterogeneous, but when you work with digital, you sometimes aim for more homogeneous corpora. So can you a bit comment on this part?
Yeah, thank you, Haralds, for the question. Well, actually, is the most challenging part of the research of this part of the research. The thing is that I cannot consider text just as text, in the sense that the nature itself of those texts is really connected to the nature of the supports, in the sense that as we have seen, if you have a stamp, or if you have a larger paper, you can write differently. So what I've done, according to the methodology that are normally used to work with heterogeneous corpora, is to provide a interaction with my digital tool that include also the metadata of the documents. So I try, for instance, to consider the length of the text and the kind of support inside the tokenization. So my lemmatization, my tokenization was differently applied to different texts. And at the same time, I try to use, like n-gram, for instance, methodology to approach the differences inside this text. So I try to apply a diversified methodology, trying to create a homologation. Well, it's not so it's nice to say, well, to uniform those texts. I don't know if I well explained my point, but working with metadata and heterogeneous methodology to approach heterogeneous text, I try to uniform text. I don't know if I explain my point or not.
So you were more focusing on different pre-processing approach to different parts of corpus. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Rita?
Yes, hi Giovanni, very fascinating. I recently went also to Inferno di Nazis, and so it's why it was brought my interest. My question is about the sources. So on this table, I saw this 1,000 of postcards, and so it means that it's full collection of some museum or something, or it's some selection you made.
Yeah, well, I didn't mention. Thank you for the question. So all the documents are there are three sources for three archives for World War I. So the first is the Central Archive of Italy. So the archive, the general archive, in which all the memory of the history is contained. It's supposed to be contained, at least. I will come back on this point afterwards. the network of the resistant archives. Sorry, this is for World War II. On World War I, well, the archive of popular writing of Pieve Santo Stefano, which is an archive in which they try to collect all the popular writings tradition. And I also had this strong relationship with an historian of World War I, which is quite famous. It's called Procacci, and she gave it to me all her corpus of documents of the letters of the prisoners of World War I, which is quite tricky because at the same time I have not the same quality of information of metadata of those documents that are not for the case of Second World War. And I took those texts from the Contemporary Jewish Documentation Center of Milan, in which, well, I work as in the scientific committee board. The network of the resistant archives and always the central archive, yeah. So,
Thank you very much.
So, just to precise, I had to select a lot of the documents. It wasn't possible to take everything I found.
Because that's what I was wondering. So it's pretty representative of this genre and events like that, right? Okay, looking forward to hear more. Thanks.
You're welcome. Other questions?
Johnny, I wanted to ask one more question about definition of the letter. You already touched upon it, and when you showed those nice examples, it just occurred to me that how difficult it is really to find what is and what is not. And then I thought that somehow when you work already in archive, it might seem easier because you actually work with images or texts. So it's somehow fooling you that actually the diversity of material items is so huge that when you are in digital archive, it seems easier. But so where do you actually draw this border between what is a last letter and what is not?
Yeah, this is a very good question. The problem, well, actually, the challenge of this research would be to define the canon of the last letter, in the sense that I'm pretty sure that everyone here can, figure out what is a last letter. But there is a lot of last letter that they're classified as last letter without any kind of defined category, let's say. The thing is that after all my classification, after that I check all those documents, I would say that what is defined a last letter, and this is the direction is taking my writing in this moment, is a precise number of linguistic and semantic aspect of a text. One is, of course, for sure, the punctuation. And this is the thing of the punctuation. It was already analyzed somehow by, I think, about Leo Spitzer in his work on the letters of the prisoners of World War I. He mentioned something about punctuation, but it's pretty evident how like the last letter works like a streams of consciousness, and the punctuation is totally irregular and very limited. So this is one of the things that I'm trying to, to define as one of the points that allows to define last letter. And also the kind of language. I would say that, like there's a lot of incidental last letter, in the sense that people wrote a letter and it didn't thought that it was his or her last letter, and now it passed to us as a last letter. In this case, I would say that is a last message. So there's a sort of dichotomy between what is inside the text, what is inside the situation that that create a text that is the last. I don't know if I well explained my point, but I would say that there is a difference between last messages and last letters.
Yes, it's nice to hear your thinking about that. It's not an easy decision, but it's nice to hear.
No.
Okay, it seems that we have somehow morphed from 60 plus 30 to 3 sessions of presentation and Q&A, because it's already 40 minutes past, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you just now take your time and have the next 25-30 minutes of second block.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Harald. So yeah, here we go. So in this second block, I will more precise in terms of methodological approach and scientific, more historical scientific conclusion that I joined during my research. I didn't tell you at the beginning, but I already sent to Haralds and Elina before 3 papers that I wrote, and each of them is precisely on the first and the second and the third part. So if you want, don't hesitate, they have it, and I think that they send it to you afterwards with the slides. Also, the slides are available if you want to check afterwards. And you have on the right upper hand of the slide the link of the article related to this part. So don't hesitate if you want to go more in deep. So I was telling about, Rita asked me about the archive. So here you have a little bit the list of the archives that I worked mostly on. And as I told you, how I passed from the letters to the atlas. From the list of the execution places, I worked with the archives, and for the Center for Contemporary Jewish Documentation in Milan, I contributed to, with Laura Brazzo, the vice director of the centers, I contributed development of the open digital library that they have with all the information on each deportee. And I worked with Igor Pizzirusso from the Ferruccio Pari National Institute, the center of the network of resistance archive, on the database that they have is a database, not an ontology like the case of the Jewish documentation of the war massacres. So at one point of my research, I had a list of execution places, a list of metadata regarding deportees, and a list of all the war massacres accomplished by Nazi fascists during World War II. So we are leaving for World War I, and we are approaching just World War II for this second block. Of course, it was quite complicated, this part of the research, because it was a matter of gather together different kind of metadata, of different kind of historical events. What I had at the end of this analysis of the data, it was a very huge corpus of data composed by 36,140 people killed or deported to lager, and 14,618 repression events on the Italian territory. Why I call them repression events? Because I have massacres, I have execution, I have deportation. So more or less repression events was, let's say, a definition larger enough to allow me to gather together those different kind of events. More or less, and we will approach the problem of numbers as well. this huge amount of data is divided. So like the 66% of this data are data actually of Nazis, the authorship, sorry, I didn't find the word, for the almost the 80%, the 18%, we have fascist, and the 15.40% was Nazi and fascist together. And we have a group of unknown data that is corresponding to the 0.80%. It's pretty interesting, this part, because we will come back on the conclusion of this part of the research in a while. This corpus description allows us to understand how was conducted the control of the territory in Italy during this period, and I will come back on the division of the territory in a while, showing the map. So those data, I just to telling you how I worked on those data, and everything is online. I will show you in a while how to check them all. Let's say that for the work on the data, I spend more or less the 70% of my research time, and the rest of the time was dedicated to coding, to analyze what I can create with those data. So it was a huge work of harmonization of those data, and also try to understand what can be used or not. Sorry, French came out. Or not during my research. So let's say that for the technological part, for the digital part, I use leaflet. So everything is coded in R or with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Especially JavaScript is one of the points of this part, because of course my models are all interactive. So when you want to work with chronology and with chronological map, you have absolutely to work with the library, the leaflet library, that are the most effectively for those kind of work. Why I use two different kind of technology? Well, actually, I love, as many historians, to work with R. R is wonderful for historian. But if you want to be totally open source, and everything I will show you is totally open source, totally commented, and totally be reusable, is in line with the FAIR principle, so findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. R for chronological map, for C at my level of programmation coding, for C the use of systems that are not open source. Like Shiny App. So Shiny App, it allows you to do very fancy thing, but it's not open source, forces an abandonment to their system, to the RStudio systems. In this way, to stay on FAIR principle, to stay in open science world, for chronological map, I use JavaScript. So let's check how they work. So this is the first example. I will show you in a while. Here in the slide, you can have access also to the repository on GitHub. So just so not to go inside too much in the code, this is the index of this map. I will show you the map afterwards, before I show you the examples. So as you can see on the left part, everything is commented. So my idea wasn't just to have a model that was, useful for my research and to analyze my data, but also to provide to you all colleagues that work in the same field a model that is totally reusable. So you can take it, you can clone the repository and you can place your data because everything is commented to do so. Well, the lines of the code, well, of course, is development, is an environment for web development. We are working with Java, HTML, and CSS. Of course, you have to readapt everything rightly, but it's quite feasible. In here, you have an example of what you can find in the folder, but of course, you can go in the repository on GitHub afterwards. The second map, I will show you the map in a while. As you can see, this is why I love to work with R on special humanities. If you check, the first was contained just for the HTML file of 1,191 line of code, and we are just talking about the HTML, so we're not considering JavaScript. For R, and this is a very huge map, we have just 400 lines of code. So as you can see, why? Well, I don't know if there is any Python lovers inside the audience. You can also use Python. Well, actually, I will forgive you, but you know, it's pretty simple to manage special humanities model with R. And basically, what R does is to convert in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS the model afterwards. So it's pretty useful. And you see here the folder in itself, it's it's simpler according to the second, the first, the what we check. You can see here the block of the leaflet libraries, and all the rest of the files that allows the map to work. And in here you have a very limited number of files that interact with the code. So I show you the map. Here we are. So this is the first. This is the first. This is the chronological map. I let that go. Yeah, here we go. So you can see red is for Nazis, black is for fascists, brown is for Nazis and fascists together. The execution places are aligned with this symbol on the right-hand part. The person with arrested is the arrest icon, and the massacres are the points. So here you can see that deportation started, and also the massacres are concentrated on the front line. In a way, you will see that moving up the alleys, the Nazis start to retreat themselves to the north, to northern Italy. Here we go. This is the retreat of Nazis, and they start defending what we are calling the Gothic line in 44. And as you can see now, I'm a bit fast explaining that, but you can see that the efforts of Nazis are more concentrated in this area and in the part in which you have the borders, than not inside. The black is, here we go. This is the retreat of Nazis. I can show you again when they come back in Germany at the end of the war. Here we go. It's pretty effective, and you have day by day what is happening on the territory, and you can see how fascists and Nazis interact together, controlling the territory. So we can really have a complete overview of the situation. I could tell a lot of things about it, but we don't have enough time to do so. So in the article, you have all the conclusion. I just give it to you, some of them in a while, but you see that it's pretty interesting how to you can use this map to study the phenomenon, but also I use a lot of this map to teach those episodes. So, well, those kind of tools are pretty interesting to me and in my work for two kinds of reasons. The first is, of course, research, but the second is, of course, the pedagogic, the teaching, but also the public engagement diffusion. And it's pretty interesting, in my opinion, to use digital humanities also to came out from our research space to open our research to a larger public. Well, I can afterwards discuss a little bit more of this if you are interested. Well, this is the first model. The second model is more thematic. Where it is? Here we go. So they are the same data, and you can do this different things with them. So this is the R map. What you can do is very, very particular. Well, you can do a lot of different things. You can check for the events directly on the territory, and you can check what happened, where, how many people were involved inside the events. There is also a description for each of them. You can also check the different part of the war. Well, the borders of Italy. Of course, you can do the same in here. I forgot to tell you, but I also create some GeoJSON borders that changed during the evolution of data, of course. Here we go. I can try to do it a little bit faster. You see, Italy changed according to the passages of the allies. And in here is clear, in my opinion. And I also place like a raster of historical maps to allow, for instance, my students to check what happened at what point and how those information can be fusionated, can be united with the information that are provided by my models. Yeah, one of the things that I also I did, is a research bar in which, for instance, I don't know, I want to check where Primo Levi was taken by fascists. Levi. You click on his name and you are exactly in the place in which he got arrested by fascists. So here you have Primo Levi, Wanda Maestro, and Luciana Nissim. So his comrades in the partisan brigades, and both of them were deported with him to Auschwitz. Well, that's it. Basically, in here, of course, you can also see all together the data, but you can also divide them. You can see just the massacres, the list of arrests, and the places of the letters. And you can also have this is an heat map, but you can also have models with concentration map. In here you have darker or lighter color according to their the number, the amount of events, the repression events of each region. What I've done with those data, and I go to the end of my third block. So no, here we are. Here we go. So the spatial analysis can and allows us to move from distant to close reading of the events. And this is pretty interesting because this is one of the things we discuss and in Prague at the ERI, European Holocaust Infrastructure, the possibility to go through distant and and close reading allows us to move to a collective and individual memory, which is one of the challenge that I think in history digital humanities can answer for. And there is also another part. So in here you can see how the concentration of repression allows us to understand what? The movements of Nazis in here and the reaction of fascists to resistance activities, which is one of the points of Italian liberation war, because as Pavone said in 94, Italian liberation war took the image of a resistance war, but at the same time, a civil war. So in this case, we can see and we can represent both those nature, the soul of the Italian liberation war together with just a visual representation. And also we can answer to hypotheses. In this case, you can see a group of massacres that are mainly accomplished by Nazis. And we have two of them, the one in white, that are white. Well, of course. Well, why they're white? Because we are not sure about the authorship of those two events. But if you check, those massacres follows a mountain route. And on this route, we can see that it was under the control of Nazis. So maybe, we are not sure about it, but we can suppose that maybe also those two events, for which we are not enough information, maybe they could be in the same kind of action of the Nazis that control this route on the mountain. The second thing, and this is quite important when it came out, well, it was something that we already supposed, but digital humanities and special humanities in this case allows us to be more precise on this point. In here, you can see the authorship of the Jewish arrest in Italy. And we can see that Nazis are the most involved in arresting Jewish during this period, sorry. But if we check the geographically the arrest, we can see that in the count, and we worked together with the Jewish Documentation Center in Milan on those data. We always considered that the arrest of Jewish were included, sorry, also the arrest of Jewish in Greek island at the same time. So if we put if we just not consider this part of arrest that were a part of the deportation of Greece and well, Greece, not more, and we just consider the Italian case, we can see that with our new counts that we have done, we have more fascists involved in arrest of Jewish than not Nazi during, well, since the beginning, well, since the December of 1943. So this is a sort of, you know, like a sort of confirmation that Italians were very active in arresting Jewish. Okay, so this is my second block. So if you have any comments or questions, doubts, perplexities, I'm totally happy to try to answer.
Please, historians, raise your hand if you want to ask a question. Meanwhile, I have, again, more like digital humanities perspective question. It was really fascinating to look at what you have done. And then the question is, how much time does it take for a historian to do something like this? Is it even doable? Because when you see something so like detail so great, you think, okay, it's just not doable. But and also I liked this part where you invited to reuse your code. I think it's really a nice way, because sometimes maybe you don't have to build everything from the scratch. Of course, you still need some knowledge to reuse, but maybe can you a bit elaborate and inspire humanities people who would like to do something like this on their data?
Well, I could add my question also to Harald, because I was also very fascinated, and to see such a level of detail as you've shown, it indeed requires quite precise, elaborated metadata. So adding to Harald, were there cases where you couldn't find the necessary metadata for lost letters and other data, and where did this material end up? For example, you couldn't perhaps to detect the specific place of it or something like that. So how did you dealt with these issues?
Thank you for your challenging questions, Sanita. Well, okay, I try to answer as quick as I can. Yeah, so in terms of times, my opinion is that digital humanities, of course, not allows you to be faster, but to be more precise. And this is allowing me to answer afterwards to Sanita's question. But it's, well, in the case of this atlas, I spent more or less 1 year preparing data and models, even because, I mean, I'm not a computer scientist, so I had to learn a lot, and I did everything before ChatGPT. So it was really a lot of Stack Overflow consultation all the time. More or less, and maybe I can mention also the thing and the role of trainings to be able to do so, to create a model from scratch like that, with 1 year, a couple of years of trainings and work, we be able to compose coding models. But if we want to create like a map, like the first I showed to you, with a training of 2-3 days, I'm able to teach to someone to do so. And there's some possibilities in terms of trainings that are really good for historians. Well, I know that Sanita organized the Baltic DH school, so I don't know if you can still enroll the school, or the inscription are still going on, Sanita?
Well, we are planning the next year to devote to history.
Okay.
So yes, the plan is what we are discussing about. Yeah.
There's still going on the inscription for Cluj-Napoca European Summer University. I can pass you the link if you want afterwards. But for an historian with a couple of years of trainings and a couple of years of, the digital humanities community is super lovely. I would say I always had someone who answered to my questions and find a moment to share and to teach me something. So I also do the same, more or less. So we can also organize, like if there's a department who wants to have a trainings in special humanities for history, I used to do so. I'm gonna go to Leeds to do so, like in 1 week. So it's pretty simple to learn how to do so. We have to engage ourselves, to commit ourselves in studying a little bit of coding. That's for sure. But before approach the code, there is a lot of intermediate steps that maybe are enough for someone else. And well, the question of Sanita about the data, this is super challenging working with data, and I will show in a while in the third block my work on data, on historical data. It's super complicated because there's an article I wrote about it, but in Italian, so I don't know if you are interested in this. Maybe I can send you if you want. There is one of the problems that we have as historians to work with this data is that there is no uniformation in conceiving historical data. So just to tell you, one of the problems I had very silly problem I had was that, for instance, war massacres from an institute and deportation data from another institute had totally different fields inside the databases that was really hard to conceive or to agglomerate in the same field. Just think about that. One of the point that I had to consider is that war massacres had an amount of people involved inside the events that there are more than one, but the deportation has totally not this field. So I had to integrate those two heterogeneous data inside the same database. I don't know if I well explained my point, but there is a lack of information. You have to decide what is useful for your model and what is enough precise for your model in order to be included or not. But this is an evaluation that it can be done just with your historian sensitivity. Not well, you must become a data analyst, but with an art of an historian. That's a little bit the point. I don't know if I answered to your question. Good.
Yes, it's a discussion we can talk on for an hour. So before you continue, so I wanted to announce to everybody that we are planning to invite Giovanni you to next year's Baltic Summer School Digital Humanities. I believe you have many topics to talk about, but this one is definitely interesting. And also we have to now decide how we do the final part, because we have a 90 minutes time frame. Of course, we can go over it, but I think some people might have planned. So do you think we cut it 5 minutes before, so we still have some short question answer sessions? Because I somehow believe some people are shy to ask now, but maybe they have questions.
Yeah, I just take 10 minutes, even less, and I keep
okay.
For
cool.
the work. Okay. So, can I go, Harald?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So the last part is dedicated to two case studies that I developed started from the previous example with the Jewish Foundation in Milan, and this is let's say the first effort to create a global visualization of the Italian Jewish deportation. Well, actually, not just Italian, because we are discussing. I'm discussing the models with the Shoah Memorial in Paris as well. So we are starting a collaboration in order to use the same model and try to make them shareable at the beginning for Italian and French institutes, but also for the rest of Europe. That's a little bit the ambition. And we started with a very limited amount of data just to test my models and to test the data as well. Sanita before asked a very crucial question about the quality of the data and the granularity of the data work. And in here we have, as I work with an amount, a smaller amount of data, I can be more precise, giving to you some data, metadata. This is a lot of data are passing on. And in here we have the two case studies. So Jewish born in Milan and deported abroad. Jewish arrested in Milan and deported abroad. So we have not just Italians, but we have also Jewish coming from Jews coming also from abroad and resident in Italy at the day of their deportation. So in here, on an amount of 278 Jews arrested in Milan, I had to erase from the list 18 people because the data were not complete enough to be visualized. So this is my this is the accuracy of the model. So on this total, I have here you have also the article. If you want to check for it, it came out yesterday, so it's readable. Well, if you want. And for the case of Jews born in Milan, on 166 people, I have to erase completely 4. I'm going to go a little bit faster than that. You can ask me more information afterwards. This is my accuracy model. What I'm telling is that on the 260 people that I was allowed to visualize inside my model for the first case study, I found a total of 1 error on the date of birth inside the ontology of the center, the arrest date, the detention date, the camp date, well, the transfer to the camp, and the convoy departure to Auschwitz. So just a little reflection, a little thought about it. On a very short amount of data, we are talking about 260 people. We have a huge amount of error. And well, the case of Italy is quite particular because the transported listen with the list of Jews that were destined to Auschwitz were burned at the end of the war by Nazis. So there is some new stuff are going on. Well, not we, the group of Catalan in Trieste, they found a transported listen in Ljubljana. So there's some new things going on about it. But anyway, one of the problems is that data, the historical data, even in the book of memory by Picciotto, that was the reference for this study, they're full of incongruencies and problematic data. This is the second case study. Let's check for it. We have even less deportees, but we have even more error inside the database. What I've done in here is find for each of these error, look, the transfer date to the camp is 85 error on 162 people deported. So it's very huge. It's almost the half of the data are contain error. Well, they're not precise, let's say. Okay. When I say this, presenting my project to the Shoah Memorial in Milan, the people are not in digital humanities heard error, say, what? There is an error in the traditional deportation. Well, it was quite interesting to discuss what is an error when we are pushing data with people not inside digital humanities. Anyway, so I solve those problems. We can discuss how I do so, but at the end, I also verified that for the case of Milan, we have a lot of unknown case of arrest Jews. So it's pretty particular, the case of Milan, because if I show you, more generally, we have more or less all the authorship of the rest, but not in Milan. I'm gonna go for the maps. So the maps are two kinds of maps. I try to gather together, and maybe you can recognize more or less the map, a little bit, the graphics, the interface. So it's the evolution of the first model. And I try to gather together a special approach with network analysis. So it was super challenging because I tried to put together all the skills I had in programming languages, and it was super, super hard. And the second model I prepared, I will show you directly how they work, is a very specific network analysis system. I will show you how they work. So first, maps. So this is the case of Jews deported from Milan, and in here you can zoom, of course, and you can see the square as the arrest. So in here you have some group of Jews arrested in here, and you can see that you can pass from global to a close reading approach as well. In this case, here you have the case of people who were arrested in Rome, and you can see how they connected themselves with each other. Sorry, I lost my speech. According to, well, Auschwitz, of course. This is Auschwitz. Here you go. Yeah, maybe I have to stop it. Yeah, so you have Auschwitz, and at this moment of the war, you have 23 people of the entire data set of data. After here, this is, for instance, the prison of Milan at this moment of the war, and you see the points, the dots can become bigger and smaller according to how many people in these months are present inside this place. You have Fossoli in here, which is one of the camps in which Jews were divided and sent to different concentration camps. And actually, well, it's quite complex. It seems quite complex, but it is made and is thought to be, to display the phenomenon of the deportation in its globality. But as I told before, to pass from this collective memory of the events to a more individual memory, like the one of let's say, of Cohen Helena. And you can see that the line of Cohen Helena is becoming orange, but just orange for the moment, because it started being red according to the dates. So you see at this moment, the 7th of May of 1944, she came from Bergamo to Fossoli, and afterwards, if I click on play, you see it's still orange. In a while, it becomes red. It means that the journey has been done. So you have more information on the right-hand part, and also you can select, for instance, the different trains that came to Auschwitz or to the other camp. And at the end of the war, when the timeline is over, you can see in black, in green, the survival, and in black, the people who did not survive to the Shoah. Second model, this is the cartographic one. The second is more on networks. So this is a network that can be navigated. On the upside part, you have all the deportees. This is the case of Liliana Segre, who's a senator of Italian Republic, and you have afterwards for instance, in this case, the place in which they were imprisoned and the place in which they were transferred afterwards. And you can select directly on the network. When you click on the network interacts with the user and allows you to see where the people were imprisoned and afterwards where they were brought. And also you can select from here each deportee, or the place. And it's very useful when we want to go through the data, because you can interact with them. And the very last part, and I end my presentation, considering that historically there is a problem in the definition of the trains who brought the Jews to Auschwitz. There is two kind of numeration to be sure that everything was conceived according to my reference. I create also a website in here in which you have the list of the train with the people of the case study included under the train description, and also the connection with the Open Digital Library of the center. Just the last thing, everything you can find inside the article, the paper that is included inside the slide in here. You have the link in here, but also Elena will pass you the papers. You have all the information to join the repository on GitHub, and you can, of course, work freely with data and the models and everything you would like to do, because everything is totally in line with open science philosophy. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Giovanni. I'm inspired and without words. So, but let us have some questions from historians or other researchers.
Well, I could just say many thanks for the so deep insight, also in not only in the topic but in the tools. Much to think. I haven't used R but Python, but this was quite but JavaScript also is nice for me, works for me. So but yes, exploring maps in connection to network, it's quite a combination. So very nice to experiment a bit.
If you want, this is my GitHub profile, so you can find all the repositories with commented codes. So Anita, if you're interested.
Yeah, definitely is. But I'm also looking forward to meet you next summer and have some training sessions on what we would agree on.
While historians are making up questions, I still following up on this lead of how to inspire humanists who have never done anything digital. So you said that in 3 days you could teach something, but then you also said that you need a couple of years to really make something like this work. But what would you say, maybe not aiming at such beautiful models you have made, but what would be the first 1 or 2 steps for a historian who's a professional in his sphere and would like to do something digital?
Yeah, this is a good question. Well, actually, one of the problem, I share my email if you want to write me instead than talk now. Well, actually, the thing is that one of the problem that we have when we start approaching GIS or geographic information systems is that we want to visualize things immediately. So this is one of the things. I remember myself when I started, I wanted to do maps. I wanted to visualize my things. But the first point is always make an effort thinking how to manage data. That's the point. Everything is for the data. And one of the things that we take the risk to find hard to us as humanists is to give the right importance to data. So the first approach is to do a really hard work on format and data. That's the point. Because when the data are well formatted, they can be used inside any kind of system. So no matter coding, application, there is a lot of also applications that are really useful and well done. I mean, it's not important that you code. I did a choice that is also political, I mean, ethical. I did my thing inside open source technologies because I want that, I don't want to be, let me pass the terms, slave of systems that manage my data and my stuff for me. So I want that the knowledge I produce can circulate within people without any kind of, you know, any kind of limitation. So this is why, but I started with application, and I think that the path to it's like there's an expression in Italian that always say that you being hungry more you eating, you know, like, so while you are learning stuff you want to learn more and more. So it wasn't just a choice, it was, you know, like also something that I felt that I wanted to learn.
Okay, it seems that in the Nordic spirit, people are listening and soaking up with knowledge, but not really asking questions. But I can feel the energy. And Giovanni, thank you a lot for this. And
it was a pleasure also to meet you, and you were so kind with me in this period. So it was a pleasure also to see you, you know,
yes,
not in real life, almost, let's say.
yeah, let's meet in real life sometime. Sanita, do you want to add some final words? Do you know we have some next events or something?
Currently, we do not know the next events, but we will send email to all participants after the workshop, and also attach, Giovanni, your papers if it's okay, and give link to your GitHub and email. So
yeah, don't
thank you.
Write to me if you have any question in general. Say to all the participants. I mean,
yeah.
Okay, thanks everybody. Have a good day and see you in some other.